Okay, so right now we're talking about letting God navigate your life. And we're using the illustration of a teenager, a 19-year-old teenager in Memphis that Sam Phillips picked up on, and that finally a record, That's All Right, was made. And then after the local disc jockey picked up on that, and then some appearances occurred on the Milton Berle show and some other national TV shows, the next thing you know, he's offered a contract by RCA Victor, and he does Heartbreak Hotel. And of course, this guy is only going to be around about 4 decades because, a little more than 4 decades, because he unfortunately really didn't let God navigate his life. Now, Moses, on the other hand, God navigated and prepared Moses, not only with the birth of his not only with the marriage of his parents, but with his birth. His sister, the royal family he was adopted into, given the name Moshe, and all of his experiences prepared him so that by the time he was 80 years old, and we want to look now at the New Creation Bible for Muslims. We want to open it to page 59 and go there where it says Exodus 3:1. Now Musa, that's the Arabic way of saying Moses, was keeping the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the wilderness and came to the mountain of Elohim unto Horeb, and the angel of God appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Musa said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when God saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Musa, Musa. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am Elohim of thy father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Musa hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And God said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land unto a good land, and a large land, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. And now behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now hither, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Now, I'm not going to read any more, but this is all found at BibleHub.com/NCBM. And you can see this translation done by me, translated by me for the Muslim readers. Now, friends, here's the point. You want to let God navigate your life. If you do what Elvis did, if you try to navigate it on your own, you will crash and burn. There were people who knew him personally who said, yes, Elvis was a lost boy. A lost boy. He didn't find God, apparently. He found drugs, he found many things. If you go to Memphis and you go to the museum there where his house was and all that, you just see a bunch of old cars. They're antiques now, and all the stuff that his millions of dollars purchased They're just quaint little antiques now. You know, you wouldn't really want to necessarily have what he had. So what does it profit a person if they gain the whole world and lose their soul? And you see, Moses was navigated by God. His life was navigated. Everything was worked out so that he could know God and be a minister to his people. Now, in my case, the Lord had Donald McGavran arrive in Pasadena, California. This is in the Los Angeles area there. Then the Lord had me arrive. I was there going to be an actor. Then the Lord had a man named Myron Taylor arrive. And then finally, lastly, the Lord had my mother arrive. And when my mother took me to hear Myron Taylor preach, I became a believer, and then he picked up the phone and called Donald McGavran, and then he sent me over there, and then I began my education, and this was the man that would be my mentor and the editor of my books and opened all the doors for me to be involved in not only Jewish ministry, but Muslim ministry. So you see, God orchestrated the whole thing. God navigated my life. And that's what you want to let God do, because if you let God navigate your life, it'll be a great life. It'll be greatly used. And then later on, when you're like me, I'm 75 years old, I have a lot of things I could be worried about, but I keep reminding myself, look, if God navigated the beginning of my life like that, he can surely navigate the end of my life as far as whatever things, challenges, whatever that I have to face in the last days of my life. Now, that's what this is all about. It's all about letting go and letting God. And if you're a young person, and here's a tragedy. Here he was, 19 years old, a young person in Memphis. And all these people were getting excited about him, and the whole nation was getting excited about him. The king of rock and roll, and all these teenagers were leaving their jobs and becoming sort of groupie fans hanging out at his mansion. And he purchased all this stuff for his mother and dad and all this, and they had been a poor family, and now he had all this money to burn, and all that seemed very exciting. But you see, it didn't end well, because he didn't have God, and God wasn't in the driver's seat. You have to give your life to God. You have to turn your life over to him. And the only way you can do that is by seeking the Lord in his scriptures. And that's why we did the Orthodox Jewish Bible for the Orthodox Jews. Here it is. Okay? And then we did the New Creation Bible for Muslims. Here it is. Now these translations are going out in the millions all over the world. And who am I? I'm nobody. I was just a guy trying to be an actor, going to Hollywood. But by the grace of God, the unmerited favor of God, the love of God, the goodness of God, he brought these people into my life. Donald McGavran, Myron Taylor, my mother, and all three of them were used by God to get a hold of me so that I could be navigated to God's purposes, so that God's call and God's desire and God's work could be accomplished. That's what God did. And you know what? He will move heaven and earth to do the same thing for you, just like he did for me. Amen?